What's up, everyone? Happy Mondays. Coach Tony here with College Admissions Secrets. I am your college admissions expert. Welcome back for another live training here this week. April is done, which means we're 1/3 the way down the year. This year has been flying by, which also means that May 1st, all of the juniors or all the seniors officially committed to their schools as well too. So they're about to embark on a new journey. I'm super, super excited for them, which also means for me, we're restarting the cycle now. A bunch of juniors are up next to get ready. This is their year to shine as well too. So stay tuned for a lot of more awesome material, resources, content about the college admission cycle. But just for today, we got a bunch of requests over the past few weeks about like financial aid and specifically scholarships. So scholarships, I'll let the pro explain more about scholarships, but I went around and found the very best scholarships expert out there for you all. So I'm super pumped to introduce her. She has an awesome presentation. If you have any questions, any comments, leave in the chat box. I'll be living in the chat box for the next 30 minutes or so. So I'll do my best to answer. If not, we'll bring it up for our special speaker to chat as well too. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Aiden.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm still kind of getting used to the format where I can't see or hear you, but you guys can all see me. But this is super cool, super exciting. My name is Aiden, and I'm pumped to be here to talk to you guys all about paying for college and, of course, more specifically, scholarships. So with that, let's get right to it. And as Tony said, feel free to leave any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll try and answer them at the end. So without further ado, let's go. So first, just to get to know me a little bit better, my name is Ayden Berkey. I'm from New Jersey. I'm about to move to New York next week, though, so a little bit of a relocation. I attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I just graduated last May. I was a marketing and human resource management major while I was there. Since graduating, I have founded Access Scholarships, which is a free scholarship search engine and student resource platform. It's literally like my whole life now, and that's why I'm here talking to you guys about scholarships and paying for college, and I'm super excited to be doing it. So I will be talking a little bit more about that later. And then just a few other things, hobbies and interests. I love to run, I love to bake, listen to music, and I am a Gen Zer, so still very much involved on social media and stuff like that. You can definitely find me on Instagram, on Reels and TikTok and all that fun stuff. So really, the reason why I kind of got involved in this space was because I had the chance to speak to my peers as well as other students around the time that I was graduating. And I really found that cost is like one of the biggest factors and determinants in where students actually decide where they want to go to school, which is why I'm really happy that you all are here as parents to listen and learn and be proactive with like learning about the paying for college process for your kids, because it is such an important part of the journey. So I created this emoji hierarchy probably about 6 months ago now, and I've used it in some presentations that I've done for students, and they seem to really like it. So I thought that I would bring it right in here. Basically, this emoji hierarchy kind of classifies a few of the different ways that you can pay for college. So on the left over here, you'll see that we have scholarships and grants, which is the bulk of what I'm going to be talking about today. It's a really, really great way to pay for college because it's free money. Moving more towards the middle, which is kind of like an at ease face. We have federal work study programs, getting help from parents and family, and even sometimes like student income and savings. Like I know a lot of people that, me myself included, that I paid for parts of my tuition fees through my own income and through money that I earned throughout school. And then over here on the right hand side, a little bit less favorable, but still very, very common, we have loans. So just a little quick hierarchy there, and I'm going to be diving into a few of these definitions a little bit more here. So you all, I'm sure, know what loans are. This is kind of a little bit more geared towards the students because they tend to not really know a lot of the terminology. But basically, what I do want to kind of focus on is the fact that there are two different types of loans. There are the federal loans, and then there are private student loans. The federal loans are the ones that come through the FAFSA, and those are always preferable over private student loans for a few different reasons, but that will be touched on later. And these federal loans may be offered as a part of your financial aid package from a school like that your child applies to. And usually the federal loans just like have some benefits that private student loans don't, and they're just a bit safer. Next up, we have federal work study. And this is basically a program that provides part-time jobs for both undergraduate and grad school students that have financial need. And the really cool thing about the program is that it allows students to gain work experience in an area that they're interested in, or in an area that's related to their major, but they're also paid by the hour as an undergraduate. So that money can go directly towards paying for their tuition and other fees like that. That's coordinated through the school's financial aid office, but it is something that is looped into the FAFSA. And then thirdly, here we have the Pell Grant. This is a grant, aka a scholarship. It's free money for students that have exceptional financial need. Usually it provides around $6,000 annually, but that number can fluctuate depending on your level of financial need. So you may be eligible for, say, $2,000 of a Pell Grant. $6,000 is generally around the max amount that a student can earn annually through this grant. Like I said, this does not ever need to be repaid, and you're automatically considered for this grant when you file the FAFSA. So I mentioned the FAFSA a few times on that slide, but I'm going to go into it here because it's so important. I like to call it the first major key of the paying for college puzzle. I'm sure some of you, if maybe you have children who are already in college, you probably know what the FAFSA is, but if you're kind of new to the space, I can just give you a quick overview here. So the FAFSA, aka the free application for federal student aid, it's really considered the most important step when it comes to applying for federal grants and scholarships, work study programs, and even loans, as I mentioned, those federal loans. So basically how it works is when your child is a senior in high school, the FAFSA becomes available either on or around October 1st of that year, and you and them will create a FAFSA ID and submit financial information and other information like your social security numbers, driver's license info, federal tax returns, all fun stuff like that. And that's also the place where you and your child will list the colleges that they're planning on applying to, and basically saying, these are the schools that I want to receive my FAFSA information. And then once you have all the forms and everything is filled out, you will review what's called your student aid report, and then wait until you hear back from the schools to see how much aid you've earned from each one that you've been accepted to. So that was just a bit of a long-winded way of saying that it is this free application that kind of provides you aid in a lot of different ways. One of the most common questions that I do get in relation to the FAFSA, and I get it from both students and parents, is they say, like, I really don't think that I'm eligible to receive aid. Like, should I still be filling it out? And my answer to them unequivocally all the time is absolutely. The FAFSA is a free form, hence free application. It doesn't cost any money to fill out, and you really never know what you might be eligible to receive. Also, even if you're just going towards federal loans, you need to fill out the FAFSA for those too. So definitely, I highly encourage everyone to fill it out, even if you think that you might not be eligible for anything. So just a few quick tips and tricks here in relation to the FAFSA. I know on that last slide, I mentioned that it usually opens on or around October 1st. So if you want to kind of stay on top of it, I recommend completing, or at least starting to fill out the form and completing it as close after that as you can. Each state and each college actually has its own deadlines for when the FAFSA needs to be filed by. So I think the actual deadline is sometime around June, but that there's a lot of months between October and June. So and honestly, if you have all the forms and all the information gathered together, then it really doesn't take so long. So I highly recommend trying to fill it out as early as you possibly can, so that you can maximize the amount of aid that you can potentially receive, especially from the schools that your child is interested in. And then next, this is definitely one step of the process where I always recommend that it's super helpful to stay organized. So when I was applying for the FAFSA for the very first time, I made a Google Drive, a folder, and in that folder, I kept all of my FAFSA relevant information. So the tax forms, the financial information, contact info, the information about my parents, all that stuff. And I kept it handy in one place so that I could refer back to it whenever I needed it in future years also. And then lastly, Studentaid.gov is the website that hosts the FAFSA, and that's the website where you'll apply for the FAFSA on. And they have lots of really like nifty tools and tips for helping students and parents fill out the FAFSA in an easier way. So I highly recommend checking out. They have like, I think it's a blog / an announcements and events page. And if you go on there, then they're always posting updates of like shortcuts and things like that that you can take to make filling out the forms even easier. So with that, before we move on to the scholarships portion of this, definitely be sure to bookmark this website, studentaid.gov. Also, another thing that I want to mention is that this is the only website where you can and should be filling out the FAFSA. If you come across another website on Google or on the internet and it says like, hey, here to fill out your FAFSA, or fill out your FAFSA on this website, but it's not studentaid.gov, then do not use that website. Only use this website, and I highly just recommend that you bookmark it now. Even if you have children who are not yet coming close to having to fill it out, definitely just take a look around the website and kind of get used to understanding all the different types of aid, because it's super helpful and it'll make you less stressed later on. So now, like I said, now we can dive into scholarships, which is my specialty area. Scholarships, as I kind of mentioned on the emoji hierarchy, they're super great because unlike loans, money that students earn from scholarships does not ever need to be repaid. It's 100% their money to put towards their education, their tuition and fees. And scholarships can really be like awarded on the basis of either merit or academic achievement. They can be awarded on the basis of financial need, or other achievements, other factors of a student's life and their profile, really. So I like to kind of categorize scholarships into a few different categories. These categories are definitely not mutually exclusive. There is a bit of overlap between them, but I just find it easiest to kind of separate them into these categories just for people who are kind of getting started. So the first category that we have here is private scholarships. These are like lots of scholarships that you'll see that are sponsored by large organizations, even like medium and small organizations or companies. Some of the really common private scholarships that you all may have heard of are the Coca-Cola scholarship, McDonald's has a scholarship, Taco Bell has a scholarship. So I mean, I know that these are just food companies. They're definitely not all food companies, but like for example, Microsoft, Google, Intuit, like all of these private organizations do have scholarships for the most part, and they can be found through either going to that organization's website or through online scholarship search engines like mine, which I will talk about later. But number two here, we have need-based scholarships. So these are scholarships that are awarded on the basis of financial need, and every need-based scholarship is different. So for example, one scholarship may say that you need to submit your FAFSA or submit other forms to kind of prove that your family income is below, let's say, $30,000. And then maybe another need-based scholarship might say that your income needs to be below $90,000. So there definitely is a bit of variance in those, but there are some scholarships that will require some level of financial need. And then next, number three, we have merit-based scholarships. These are the scholarships that take into account your child, the student's academic achievements. These are areas, so they may ask for a submitted transcript, GPA, letters of recommendation from teachers, awards and honors, test scores, sometimes even class rank is commonly considered, all things like that. Lots of private scholarships are merit-based scholarships, but private scholarships can also be a mix of need and merit-based. And then finally, one thing that I think a lot of students kind of tend to overlook or don't realize is the fact that once you get to college, wherever it is, there will be a wide variety of scholarships that will be available to you or for your child to apply for based on their major, based on extracurricular activities and involvement on campus and other interests and hobbies. They may even be able to apply for local scholarships in that area if it's outside of the area where they grew up in. So lots of categories of scholarships, lots of opportunities to earn money for school. So there are a few different places where you can actually go to start looking for scholarships. I find that this is kind of one of the most stressful parts of the process, is because there is a bit of an information overload in terms of like, there are so many options, so many resources, so many places to look. So On the side, hopefully I can kind of consolidate that for you to just make it a little bit easier. So the first thing that I want to mention, even though it's not actually the first one on this slide, is just the importance of taking advantage of your local community. So whether that means setting up time to speak with your child's school counselor or having them set up time to do that, to talk about local scholarship opportunities, or just doing research within your community. Like, for example, maybe small business owners or a place of worship or sports teams, things like that. They are common places where local scholarships tend to live. And the great thing about local scholarships is that they do tend to be less competitive because your child isn't competing against someone who lives in Texas if you live in New York, right? So those scholarships are only for students in your community. So those are definitely the ones that I recommend starting with first. And then beyond that, we have lots of online platforms and resources. AccessScholarships.com, which is my website, is a scholarship search engine. There are lots of other great online resources too that I recommend, including Sally Mae. And there are tons of other ways that you can search for scholarships online, whether it be just through Google, or if you actually have a specific organization in mind, maybe you or someone in your family is like a member of an organization that's specific for STEM or for engineering or things like that. So just actually going to the actual websites of those private organizations to see if they offer scholarships, that's always a good move as well. And then finally, I know that this is probably a little bit far down the line, but super important to just know where, or have your child know where their resources are for when they get onto campus. So for me, when I was in college, this meant just doing a lot of research beforehand, going to the financial aid office in person when that was available to me, making time to like set up chats and appointments to call to talk about scholarship opportunities that were available to me as a business student, as a marketing student, all fun things like that. So lots of places where you can actually go to start looking. But as I said, I definitely recommend for students that are still in high school to take advantage of the local community first. And then just a few quick steps, because the process of applying for scholarships, it's kind of like the process of applying for college, which I'm sure you guys maybe have done that before, but with your child who is in high school, you're probably not quite there yet. But it's kind of like the process of applying for college, but it's also very, I would say, interesting in the fact that like when I was doing it myself as a student, I really thought that like I knew everything about what I was doing and I thought I was doing everything right, when in reality there were probably lots of things that I wasn't doing right with the process. So now I have made this slide so that I hope parents and students can learn what you all should be doing during the process of applying for any given scholarship. So the first thing is to just start by doing your research on the organization. So if you found a scholarship or found a scholarship that you're interested in applying for, make sure that you know all the details, not only about the scholarship, but also about the organization. So looking to see what their goals are, what their mission statement is, what they stand for, how this scholarship really ties into all of those things is super important to start. And then as someone who's applying, of course, you don't want to go through all of the steps to actually apply and get your essays ready without double checking to make sure that you're fully eligible to apply for the scholarship, because no one wants to put in all that effort only to realize that the minimum GPA was a 3.5 and you only have a 3.2, right? So double check to make sure that you're eligible. And this third step here is just making yourself aware of all of the application requirements. So, excuse me. So some scholarships require essays, some require letters of recommendations also. Some require, as I said, paperwork, like they might ask you to submit your FAFSA or other financial information. Others may even ask for a video recording. So making yourself aware of all of those requirements, and also having somewhere where you can actually keep track of them. So for me, this means using an Excel sheet as a scholarship tracker. I have it linked on my website, so I can definitely send that out afterwards. But that's a super helpful way to keep track of all the application requirements for any given scholarship. And of course, taking note of the deadline, because you do not want to put in all that effort only to miss the deadline. And then throughout the process as a whole, but generally more so when you're writing your essays or when your child is writing their essays and maybe even recording a video, thinking about what makes you different and unique from all the other applicants, like what gives you a competitive edge and how can you really maximize on that to make your application stand out to the scholarship committee. And when it comes to your essays specifically, super important to just demonstrate your passion for the topic. And if the essay does have like multiple different questions, make sure that you're answering all of the questions. Make sure that your essay is actually in a format that is easy to read. And with that, super important to make sure that you're editing and proofreading those essays. I know that when I wrote scholarship essays, I would even ask my teachers sometimes if they had time to read them over. My parents would read them over as well. So definitely more than one look over is highly recommended. So now at this point, I feel like I've kind of covered a lot of information about scholarships, but I do want to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight into Access Scholarships and the platform that I've created for students and how it can be helpful for your children. So just to do a quick run through, the main feature of Access Scholarships is our scholarship search engine. So this really allows students to kind of enter in their information, as you can see here, home state, citizenship, are you in high school, what area of study are you interested in, your GPA, all fun things like that, and receive back personalized scholarship results. So that is, of course, the biggest feature of the website because I update our database of scholarships pretty much daily with new opportunities, and I'm always updating scholarship programs that maybe have deadlines are changing and all that fun stuff. So everything is very up to date, and that's obviously one great place to find scholarships. So in addition to the scholarship search, I also run a blog on Access Scholarships where I cover lots of information on tips, tricks, strategies for applying for scholarships. I also, as you can see here, will put out posts every few weeks kind of highlighting, for example, scholarships that are LGBTQ plus or scholarships for Hispanic and Latinx students, et cetera, et cetera. The blog is not only focused on financial stuff, it's also focused on navigating everything college related, and really just success in the college and career space as well. Just anything that I think is relevant for students. And then in addition, you can see I have this student resources tab, and there are quite a few different resources under it. But the main page, which is the general student resources tab, I have a bunch of printables, and you can see here, you can easily download the scholarship tracker. That's one of my favorites. And there are lots of other resources on this page that I recommend for students. Some are for studying, some are for organization, others are for productivity and college prep. So all fun stuff like that that will help high school and college students navigate through all of these processes. I also have a very specific test prep resources page, talks about the SAT and the ACT. I have an article on test optional, which of course was a very big thing because of COVID and everything like that. And just the fact that lots of schools are planning on staying test optional. So that is very important. And of course, resources for studying and prep and all fun stuff like that. So also one scholarship that I did want to highlight because the deadline is coming up this May. Well, it is May, but May 31st. I have a $500 scholarship that I'm hosting with Gabriella Carter, who is another really awesome person in the scholarship space. It's called the Self-Reflection Scholarship, and it's open to high school students. It's a $500 scholarship, and it just requires one short essay. So that scholarship is also on my website for your children to apply for. And yeah, so just to kind of wrap everything up very quickly, super important to have a plan for paying for college, and the fact that you all are here and listening really shows that you're taking the initiative with that, which is super important. Developing a scholarship strategy that works for you or for your child. Another part of the process, like the same way lots of students don't just blindly apply for college. They kind of have a strategy and a way to approach it. And the same thing goes for scholarships. So you should kind of be looking in buckets, saying, okay, now I'm going to look for local scholarships. Here's how much time I'm going to dedicate to the process. Here's what I'm going to use when I search, right? Like my GPA, my extracurricular activities, X, Y, and Z. And really, once you set some goals, trying your hardest to stick to them. I know that the process can be really daunting and stressful and just sometimes tough, but setting goals for yourself that are realistic will just make the process a lot easier as well. So with that, if any of you are interested in learning more about paying for college, scholarships, college life in general, I am very active on Instagram and also a bit on TikTok. So feel free to follow me on there or have your children follow me on there. I'm always posting new content. But for parents specifically, feel free to shoot me an email. My email's on here, as well as my Instagram account. And aside from those, you can either connect with me via email or even text if you're interested. I also do host. I run highly individualized one-on-one sessions with students to help them get started with getting organized with the scholarship process, with curating lists for them in terms of the actual scholarships that they should be applying for, and then of course helping them work on those essays and those extra submissions to make them as strong and as competitive as possible, so that hopefully they can win as many scholarships as possible. So that is the information about my individualized one-on-one sessions. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to me through either or any of these platforms. So with that, thanks so much for virtually attending. At this point, I'm going to toss it back to Tony so he can finish up and wrap up. But thank you all so much for being attentive and listening. And also, we will, of course, at this point, open up to questions too. So.
I'm unmuted. Awesome. That was amazing. I think I was taking a bunch of notes myself as well too. So super, super awesome. We do have a few questions if you have time to answer a few questions from students, a mix of students and parent questions as well too. First, students asking like, when should they start applying for scholarships?
Yeah. So the answer that I have is maybe not so helpful, but as early as possible, right? So there are scholarships out there for like middle school students. There's obviously not so many, but definitely as you get into high school, like freshman, sophomore year, there are probably more local scholarships, but you can find scholarships for really any year in high school. But they do tend to like ramp up significantly for high school juniors and seniors. So what I would recommend is really kind of just taking a preliminary look at it and doing the research as a sophomore, if that's where you are, so that you can kind of be ready to apply for those scholarships that are really big, that are coming out for the beginning of your junior year.
Super awesome. I think kind of along that same lines, another question was like, is there a certain month of the year where there's like more scholarships than normal?
To be honest, I mean, so I've been doing this for about a year now, and like specific with scholarships, and I've kind of noticed that the only time where it seems like there's a little bit of a dip is over the summer, but there are still lots of scholarships available over the summer. I have tons in the database and I see them all the time. But definitely, I mean, there are lots of scholarships that will have deadlines like November and December, lots like right before the new year, but there are also lots of scholarships, like I passed tons that had like April deadlines and March deadlines. So there really isn't one time of the year that's more of a sweet spot, which is actually good because then you can always be applying.
Super awesome. Another question about scholarship is, where should students start looking for local scholarships?
Yeah, so for local scholarships specifically, the first place that I reached out to was my school counselor. But I do know that some counselors are sometimes not as helpful as others when it comes to kind of making these resources available or just really helping out with them. So I recommend starting honestly online with them, just like in terms of Googling like scholarships for X county, like if you live in Orange County, right? Scholarships for Orange County high school students, and then really kind of see where the rabbit hole takes you. Also, if you are involved in your community, whether that's through like a church or a synagogue, something like that, or like if you're part of like the Rotary Club or your parents are a part of that, then reaching out to people that are involved in those resources too, because you don't know who they can connect you with. So that's my advice there.
Awesome. And there's like a few comments that I think you can kind of classify them together. So that someone asked like, hey, they're looking for specifically like a music scholarship, or a mom's like, hey, my kid's autistic or he has an IEP. What do you recommend for students, for families that have like very specific need, like a specific area or a specific like, characteristic? What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so on scholarship search engines, you can often sort by those specific things. So for example, like you can sort by even just typing in a keyword music or like the major music, things like that. But in general, that's kind of also where I would kind of get creative with using Google as well. Like if you're into music, but maybe it's not your major, Googling something like scholarships for like musicians or scholarships for like music, like hobby, right? Because there are lots of scholarships that are out there for those things. And it's really great because they're very niche and they're highly individualized. So you're going to get less applicants. So using search engines, using Google as its own search engine, and then of course, using your school's resources. So when you're in college, if you're majoring in music, let's say, then of course apply for as many music scholarships as you can.
Super cool. Let me try to reword this question a little bit because it seems a little off. If you apply for scholarships, how many can you accept if you apply them? Also, I'm assuming it's like if you get them all, like if you get like a bunch of scholarships, you get them all. Do you get all of them, or how does that work?
Yeah. So most, like, I would say that the majority of scholarships, the way that the providers work is that they kind of work with the school to have the scholarship money that you win go directly towards your school. So every time that you win a scholarship for college, they like that money will go towards your school, and your school will apply it to your tuition and fees and things like that. So let's say you won more scholarships than what you needed to pay for school, then you just wouldn't be able to accept all of them because, like, especially, I mean, if they're all going directly to the school and you are currently paying like $0 in everything, then you can't really accept any more. But there are some scholarships out there that will be a little bit more flexible in terms of what the money can be used for. So, for example, some only for tuition and fees. Others can also be used for things like room and board or like study abroad or textbooks. So those are all extra costs that you can put scholarships towards as well.
Awesome. Two last quick questions for you. Do you know anything about like internationals, like how scholarships work for like if you're applying internationally or you're applying for like the United States?
Yeah. So I can start by talking about, well, I guess this question was maybe a person who's US based going internationally. For that, I would definitely suggest just kind of starting by looking at the financial aid website of that international university that you're interested in to kind of see how it works, because every other country is a bit different from the US in terms of scholarships. I know that like we are very we have a lot of scholarships because school tends to be just so much more expensive for us here than it kind of is in a lot of other places. But definitely start by doing some research on that university's website and maybe seeing if there's someone that you can reach out to there. Additionally, if we're talking about the other way, so people who are currently outside of the US looking to study in the US, there are lots of scholarships through search engines like mine, but also you can find them on Google, scholarships that maybe are sponsored by like US companies that are open to international students as well.
Super. Oh, that's super awesome. Cool. We have one last quick question for you, but before we do that, I do want to share. So every Wednesday we do host a College Admission Academy. It's my group coaching program. Each week we basically answer questions every single week to help students out. Open Q&A call, and the students this week are in for a special treat. We're actually going to have a guest speaker hosting the event, the amazing Aiden. The amazing Aiden to be our guest host for this week's call as well too. So I'm super pumped. It's gonna be Wednesday special time, so it's gonna be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern this week for the College Admission Academy. So all of my College Admission Academy students, Gold and Platinum coaching students, this Wednesday you're gonna get a special, more in-depth training on scholarships as well too. So what you saw was just like super surface level, and it's gonna dive a little deeper and answer your personalized questions during the call as well too. So if you're interested, just join in the comments, and I'll go ahead and send you a link to register to join that group coaching program. But our final question today, I think you already answered the first part, but the second part of the question. So the question is, what's the process of scholarships being transferred to universities? And I think you answered that one. But the second question of like, does it affect the financial aid that you already got, like grants and stuff?
Yeah. So when you earn or win scholarships, and the process for that scholarship is that the money gets sent directly to your school. Often what they will do, so the answer is yes, it can impact the amount of financial aid that you receive, but from my experience, more often than not. So let's say your current financial aid package is comprised of some loans, some scholarships. Generally, like let's say you want a scholarship for $2,000, rather than taking that $2,000 away from the scholarship money that you had earned through your financial aid, they would start by deducting that from the amount of your loans because they're loans. So that was money that you were gonna have to pay back anyway. So that's kind of a little bit on how that works. But I would definitely reach out to your school specifically to kind of inquire more about that because I think it is a little bit of a case by case basis.
For sure. And with that, that was amazing. I definitely learned a lot. So if I learned a lot, everyone definitely learned a lot as well too. So same thing if you guys want to follow Aiden on Instagram, Access Scholarships on Instagram.
Yeah.
My handle as well if you want to follow me as well on there. But I'm super pumped. Thank you, Aiden, for the amazing call today.
Yeah,
And all my coaching students, you're going to get a round 2 of Aiden later this week on Wednesday as well too. She's going to go deeper and actually some of the topics that she went over today. She'll go a little deeper in each of those as well too. So I'm super pumped for that call. Thank you, Aiden. Anything else you want to lay last words, minutes? Words of advice?
No, I think I'm good. Just definitely be sure to reach out to me via Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram if you're interested in just getting advice or have quick questions or interested in one-on-one consulting and stuff like that. I do it all and I'm here to help. So I hope to see some of you guys also joining me on Wednesday. And yeah, have a good night.
Awesome. Cool. Have a great night, everyone. See y'all soon.